All right, you guys, you can see I am still here at AARC Summer Forum. This is a little bit different setup though. We're going to do an interview. We're going to talk about my journey as a respiratory therapist, how I can make changes and impact through education, and how I can bring you guys along with that journey. So I hope you guys enjoy this. You're going to get the raw footage. You're getting the real deal right here, but we're going to see what AARC comes up with.
So we'll start really easy. Tell me your name and what you do.
All right, no social security number, any of that. Okay. My name is JJ Valdez. I am the Director of Clinical Education at Victoria College in Victoria, Texas.
Beautiful. And what made you decide to become an RT?
So that's a really good question. I did not really decide to become an RT. It was chosen for me, kind of thing. In high school, I wanted to do something in the realm of medical. I'm really good with computers, and I kind of like puzzles and things like that. So I was thinking radiology, actually. And I got admitted or accepted into a radiology program in the local community college where I grew up, but they didn't have baseball. And I wanted to play baseball. So I went to a different school, right, so that I could play baseball. But the things that I had done in high school didn't transfer to that college, so I didn't get the opportunity to go into radiology. So I always say that it was a bigger plan than my own that got me into respiratory.
You've gotten to see the respiratory care field from a couple of different angles, as a student and then as a practitioner and now as an educator. I'm curious, firstly, how have you sort of seen the profession change, and then especially coming out of the pandemic? What has the shift been like?
Yeah, so, being part of that shift, right? Experiencing that, I think it comes when you start to understand your role the longer you're in it. For me, as an eager, excited, young respiratory therapist, I graduated a month after turning 21. Nobody could tell me anything. They couldn't. I knew it all. And it took a very real moment for me to identify that there's a lot that I don't know, right? And so once I got that wake-up call, I was able to take a step back and kind of see the global perspective. And so I think the shift with respiratory therapy happens as we continue to see things more broad. I think the emergence of telehealth, devices that patients can go home with, more impactful home care. Those are kind of the innovative and new things that we're doing. Of course, ventilators are coming out with new stuff. The emergence of high flow nasal cannula and the high velocity and all the things that are coming with that. But those are small pieces to what we're actually able to impact from so many different areas or perspectives.
Again, looking at sort of the different stages of your career, can you talk a little bit about how you first became aware and involved with AARC, and then how AARC has sort of supported you in each one of those phases?
Yeah, so the very first AARC event that I went to, I can't remember when it was. It was 15, 16, or 17. It was AARC Congress in San Antonio. And the people that wrote my textbooks were there. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And they're all buttoned up in their suit and their tie, and I'm the guy that shows up in flip-flops, right? And I'm just me. That's who I am. I'm gonna stay genuine to who I am. But even somebody who is as outgoing as I am, I was overwhelmed. I was like in awe of the people that I was around, and it was too much for me. I ended up going to the Riverwalk, where I was way more comfortable with the people that I knew in that area. But I gave it another chance. I came back a second time, and each time it's gotten better and better and better. The AARC, throughout my journey, anytime that I've reached out to somebody, I've always had some sort of communication back. So I think the communication piece for whatever I need in that moment, because it's been a number of different things, they've been able to help me.
When you think about let's call it the growing need for RTs, because there now is starting to become this higher demand coming out of What are the biggest challenges or hurdles to recruitment, retention, and especially helping to find a younger generation of RTs?
So some of the hurdles that we have to overcome is trying to do the things that aren't working, continuing to do the things that aren't working, right? So we have to identify what is working and how do we get that next generation. I'm on Instagram Live right now. I'm doing something that's unique to, I don't know, there's a handful of us that would probably do this. But how many respiratory therapists are there across the nation, right? And the more we do things like this, the more we can get a message out there. There's a video out there of a young girl. She's 3-4 years old, and she's given a nebulizer to her stuffed bunny. And she's using empathy and compassion and explaining the SBN, the medicine, to her patient, right? Imagine if every one of the respiratory therapists that are here or across the nation looked at that video and stitched it on TikTok, right? How much more awareness would we have about respiratory therapy?
Can you talk a little bit about, and you mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, just that trepidation the first time you came into it, but I'm curious now that you've been a part of the AARC community for a long time, and the respiratory therapy community, can you talk a little bit about what makes the AARC community different or unique as it relates to professional communities?
Yeah, so with AARC, I know that it's my people, I know it's my respiratory therapist, and it's people across the nation, right? Whenever I first came out of respiratory therapy school, I knew my people in West Texas, right? And what AARC allows me to do is to expand my circle, right? I can reach out to, Dr. Brady Scott in Chicago. I can reach out to my buddy Karsten Roberts in Pennsylvania. My buddy Matt Pavlechko. I just met a guy, Lance. I'm going to butcher your last name. I got to look it up, but Lance is part of a podcast out in California talking about RT on ice. And now we have different people, and I'm meeting people in Florida, right? And we can connect. We can connect all corners of this nation through the AARC.
You spoke a little bit about this at the beginning of the interview, but I'd love for you to just say more about it. As you're looking at the next 3 to 5 years, what are the either challenges or greatest opportunities for AARC to continue growing? What do they need to be at the forefront of? And then I would say the same question, but even for the respiratory care profession as a whole. What's going to be important for them to stay ahead of?
I think the biggest thing that we have right now in the fire that we have going right now is the APRT. Mindy Conklin, girl, you're doing big things. I asked you a few years ago if you knew that you were a trailblazer, and that's exactly what you're doing. So the more APRTs that we have, the better, the more opportunity we have for potential growth. So I think from the respiratory therapy perspective, that's probably our biggest thing. Utilizing technology with home health and telehealth and all of those measures. From an AARC standpoint, just be our biggest supporter. Be the wind in our sails that is our loudest cheerleader. That all of the things that we're doing, support it. Find who is doing early mobility programs, right? That's a program that has been around for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, but who's doing it and making impact with their patients? Who's allowing the respiratory therapist to run ECMO? Who's using vascular access? Lung ultrasound is a brand new technology that we're doing as respiratory therapists. So who's the who? No, that's a bad way. Who's the people that are, which programs are the best at it or emerging in it, and let's highlight those folks so that we can get more information out there.
My last question is, as you have gone through your career, again, different phases of it, is there a story or a particular experience that you've had that keeps you in it even when things are rough, and it could be a patient story or especially now that you're more in the education space and that mentoring space.
Yeah.
It could be a student story, but I'm just curious if there's an anecdote that comes to mind when you think about what keeps you engaged.
You know, personally, I tend to see the world with rose-colored glasses. I'm an optimist, but I'm very black and white when it comes to looking at reality and things like that. So for me, I've never had the thought of, is this what I'm going to do tomorrow? So it's just, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is where I belong. And so for me, that's never been a question. But now, you know, at one point, I wanted to be an APRT. At one point, I wanted to be the person at the bedside that had an answer when no one else did. Now, I want to create and mold and encourage and empower the next generation to do far beyond what I have done.
And then lastly, tell me your name and what you do again.
My name is JJ Valdez, and I'm a respiratory therapist.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Great.
We just had some fun, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There is, Mindy put a comment in the text, in the chat. So let's see what she has to say. This is a great setup, you guys. I love this.
So Nate.
Nate, you are the man.
Thank you.
Check him out. Say hello to everybody. Nate is the man. All right, you guys. Appreciate it.